Hey guys, my name is Matsumiao, and today we learned that Ubisoft might be considering adding a TDM mode into Rainbow Six Siege. Now, some of you might be thinking, there's no way that's happening. This would be a complete departure from what Rainbow Six Siege is all about. Why would Ubisoft even do this? And while I can see where you're coming from, a recent survey says otherwise. So a few days ago, Ubisoft sent out a survey to obviously ask some questions that mainly revolved around the different game modes that they've been experimenting with. Did we enjoy the more recent Rainbow is Magic playlist? Is that something that we would like to see in the future? What about the pick and ban system in the Road to Rainbow Six Invitationals? But also in there, at the end, there was a question that just flat out said, would we like to see a team deathmatch introduced into Rainbow Six Siege? Now, this has been something that people have always speculated on. Would this ever be something that they would introduce into the game? But I think this is the first time I've ever heard, even if it's indirectly through a survey, because of course it is a survey, we do need to take it with a grain of salt. This doesn't confirm for 100% certainty that this is going to be something that they add, but the fact that they are gauging player interest in something like this, I feel like is kind of telling. The question that I have is, though, why is Ubisoft considering doing this now? The few things that I could think of is, first of all, this might just simply be Ubisoft's attempt at trying to bring in newer players and get them comfortable with the game. Let's be completely honest, Siege is very intimidating for anyone that's new. There is a mountain of content here. Not only do you need to get comfortable with all of the operators and the synergies between them, but of course there is the different strategies on all of the different maps. There are just the maps that you have to learn, and to jump in for the very first time and in a game mode that may not be all that familiar and comfortable might be the thing that just deters you from playing the game from the very beginning. But because TDM is a mode that's basically standard in every other FPS, that might be the thing to kind of ease people into what this game has to offer. The other thing that I could think of is that this could be a great tool at getting warmed up before your ranked matches, or just getting comfortable with the wide variety of recoil patterns on all of the weapons. There isn't a lot of time in Siege to actually get comfortable with the weapons in this game. Because it's slow paced, because of course it's round based, there's only 5 players on the other team, you can go an entire rank game and only actually take out 2 other people. That takes a while for people to actually get used to the way that these weapons perform. Now I realize there is T-Hunt, and that is a decent argument, but let's be completely honest with ourselves. Not only is that just simply not the same when you're going against someone who is a real person, they play differently, they move differently, but a lot of times people don't want to grind T-Hunt to get good at Siege because that's not why they play competitive FPS. They know they're not the best, but they actually want to go against other players. That's where they find their enjoyment, and just going against AI the entire time is going to lose its luster really quickly. They're going to want to move on to something else, and so maybe that's another reason why they're considering adding this into Siege. Really, the only other thing that I could think of is that maybe Ubisoft just believes that their player base would enjoy a mode like this. Just like the Road to Rainbow Six Invitational or the Rainbow is Magic playlist, this could be something that's temporary. It's only around for a week or more. People get to try it out, see if this is something that they enjoy, and honestly, this could probably be the best way to test out if this is something that the player base actually wants. They wouldn't need to fully flesh it out on every single one of the maps. They could just pick one map, go from there, and gauge people's opinions. That also might be where this is heading. Now, I realize not everyone is going to be on board with this idea, and I can absolutely see where they're coming from. One of the biggest critiques of this mode is that it would be a complete departure from what Rainbow Six Siege is all about. This game has branded itself and brought itself up based off more of a tactical, methodical, strategic experience. Having a TDM mode sort of throws that all out the window. Respawning in, everyone's running around, like that just doesn't seem like Siege. And I do agree, but I don't think that it would completely ruin the image of Siege. Games like CSGO, for example, have TDM. They've got actually a wide variety of modes, but when you think CSGO, of course you think the standard game mode. Just because they have other options doesn't mean it's anything less. It doesn't mean all of a sudden CSGO is now Call of Duty or anything like that. it still is what it is. If you want to have that gameplay, it isn't going anywhere. This would just give players other options. Another great criticism of this mode, though, is that literally no map was designed around TDM whatsoever. As you guys all know, each map was designed around offense and defense, and so how is this going to work with team deathmatch in mind? Are each team going to spawn on the outsides of the building, one on each corner? Is it going to be on the insides of the building? If that's the case, how is that going to work considering that the inside of the buildings are not asymmetrical like something like COD? They just weren't balanced around that, and so isn't that going to lead to a lot of balance issues? They would also need to consider the wide variety of operators in the game, and if they would be able to use their gadgets in the confines of this mode. That would also be something that could cause a lot of problems. Imagine Ella spawning on in. I would guess that Ella, every time that she did spawn in, she would be able to place her traps around the map. If she's getting taken out constantly, that means that of course she's able to throw 3 of her gadgets everywhere, which is going to lead to a lot of moments where you're just constantly running through doorways, getting stunned. That doesn't sound like the most enjoyable gameplay experience. Now, they could maybe put it on an internal cooldown to some extent. Maybe they could make it where as soon as you get taken out, your gadget disappears from the map. But this is all stuff that they would have to program and work around because, of course, it would lead to a lot of these moments that I think would detract from the overall experience. Another thing I found really interesting about this survey, though, is that TDM wasn't the only mode that they discussed. They also talked about bringing in something like Capture the Flag. I have a feeling that people actually might be more receptive to something like Capture the Flag. It, of course, would have a lot of the benefits that TDM has, where it would be respawn based, so you'd be getting back into the action more quickly, but it would be more team oriented. You would need to, of course, work with your team to try to capture their flag and bring it back to your side. And of course, this game actually revolves more around that kind of synergy. You could bring in shield operators to block shots and escort the actual flag. You could have different 3-speed operators to, of course, move things from point A to point B. You would have your anchors. You have your trap operators to try to slow them down. This actually could be something that could add some value. Now, of course, this mode would have a lot of the same problems that TDM has, mainly the fact that no map, once again, is designed around this whatsoever. Would you spawn the flags on the outside of the buildings or on the inside? If they're on the outside, wouldn't that limit more of the defensive operators that you can select from? It would give more area for people to flank and move around, but that, of course, would cause its own balance problems. If they are on the inside of the building, because the buildings aren't asymmetrical, wouldn't that mean that one team is going to have an inherent advantage? People are going to learn the strategies, going to learn how to work around it, and even if it is just a mode meant to be fun, if one side is heavily favored just simply because of where they spawn, that is, of course, going to cause some frustrations, and people may not enjoy the mode because of that. These are all things they would have to work around. The final thing I wanted to discuss in today's video is that Ubisoft also might be considering adding in more solo or co-op missions. In this survey, they discuss a lot about the Outbreak DLC, for example. Would we like to see more things along those lines? What kind of enemy types do we like to go against? Monsters, aliens, zombies, for example. And so they might be considering going more in that direction, which I in particular am 100% on board with. Maybe not the zombie direction. I realize not everyone was thrilled with the zombies, but giving us more story-based missions is exactly what I want. Learning about the backstories and seeing the interaction between Ash Thermite to Tachanka, seeing them in those short little teasers, I thought was one of the coolest moments that we've had in Rainbow Six Siege. Getting a glimpse into the characters that we have grown to love over the years, I think was amazing. And to have more of that, and especially a story-based mission, or at least some co-op experiences, I think would add a lot of value to Rainbow Six Siege. I truly do believe that if done correctly, not only could we get some great stories out of this, but also the gameplay could be amazing. Everyone, when they bought Rainbow Six Siege, or at least I, wanted to have those methodical tactical experiences where you breach into a room, you throw in your flashes, you move on in, and you take out really difficult enemies. Having that in a a single or a co-op mission with your friends to be able to pull off like something like that in the confines of this game, I think could be absolutely incredible. And so all in all, I am really curious to see where all of this leads. Once again, this was just simply a survey, and so nothing is set in stone. They just simply want to gauge our opinion. And so let me know what you guys think about this topic. Do you guys want to see a TDM or a capture the flag introduced? Do you think that it could add some value? Would you rather them move in the direction of more single player or co-op missions? Do you want them to focus on something entirely different, just mainly the multiplayer, which of course is the meats and potatoes of this game? Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's video. I thought that this would be a fun topic to talk about, and so I hope you enjoyed. But until next time, have a good one and take it easy.